Welcome to Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast. I am your host, Dave West, codename Phantom Troublemaker.
And I am your co-host, Noel Wood, codename Crapshoot.
And I'm your Cobra intern that's checking out the hook while the DJ revolves at Codename Legion Club.
We almost didn't make it on here. I've been distracted. Often I'm working on stuff up to the moment of when we go live. And this time around, I realized I didn't have tomorrow's review on the Needless Things YouTube channel uploaded yet. So I was working on that. Apparently, I'm still working on that. I got to turn the phone off and focus on the matter at hand, which is you are watching Audible Interlude live on the Needless Things YouTube channel. We have these nice live conversations with the Audible Army, is how I like to think of them. Alternating Mondays, you show up, you hang out, we'll talk to you about G.I. Joe and other stuff as well. And our next live stream is May the 5th. So put it on your calendar. Be ready. We're going to talk about G.I. Joe again, but before we get to May the 5th, we've got April the 21st, and we've got, honestly, not a lot of news to talk about, but that's okay, because if there's one thing that we know how to do, it's fill up some time. You know what else we can do? Sell some t-shirts. That's right. I hope you're following Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram. Go to those pinned stories and get yourself some Audible Interlude merch. Now, if you're watching the live stream as opposed to listening to the audio version that comes out this Friday, you'll see these t-shirts, but you can also get phone cases, pillowcases, all kinds of different things with these wonderful logos emblazoned across them. But the Cobra Intern shirt still selling like hotcakes. And I expect, as I've been saying, Joe Fest is going to be just filled with those blue Cobra Intern t-shirts. It's going to be a wonderful thing to see.
I'm going to have to buy some more. So I'm using cartoon wardrobe logic. So yes, every day I'll wear nothing but Cobra Intern shirts.
Well, wait, this is a convention. I mean, you just wear the same shirt the whole time.
No.
But we still have some classic styles available, including hey, what's up, Tom Henry jumping in with a Cobra in the super chat. Thank you, Tom Henry. Everything
Tom
contributed
Henry
via super chat or any other means goes towards hosting the show, paying for the expenses, whatever else. Because let me just tell you, we're not paying for our kids' college with what we're making off of the show. That podcast money just is not as extensive as you think it is. But anyway, go grab some merch. Wait for a sale, grab some merch. We've got classic designs like the original logo, the AI Pod logo, and of course, the tactical shovel, which proved to be, it was, until Cobra Intern came along, the tactical shovel was actually our top seller. So just
people are waiting until the one day we actually have a real life tactical shovel.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm going to make it happen.
So I mentioned following Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram, those shirts on TeePublic, next live stream, May the 5th. Put all that stuff on your calendar. And we do have some follow-up to do this time around. First things we got to talk about are the silent missions, which we're not doing full reviews of, but we'll kind of chat a little bit about when we're on the live shows. I did an interview with Andrew Cronky, who is the creator behind the Roadblock comic that comes out this Wednesday. We had a great conversation. It's available wherever you get your podcast as part of the Needless Things podcast, or right here on the Needless Things YouTube channel if you want to watch the video version. But before we get to Roadblock, our little spoiler-free conversation, we'll talk a little bit about Spirit. Did you guys have the opportunity to check out the Spirit issue?
I did.
I did a brief glance through. I want to go back and look at these again, but
I loved the art in this one.
Mm-hmm.
It was the type of illustration where I could see it as an animated feature. Like it had a smoothness and a just the characters were so strongly portrayed. I really, really loved the art in this one, and it felt like a great little one-shot story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it bookends really nicely, like how I have always imagined Spirit to be is how he is portrayed in this comic. Without spoiling anything, I will say there comes a certain part in the story.
Well, this one came out last week, so
so we can talk about it.
Yes, this one we can spoil. However,
so there, when he gets to the lab and you see not Ravage,
right.
I was like, oh, this is now making me realize how much I miss Spirit not being in the Energon universe yet. So it kind of took me out just a little bit because I was then comparing and I do like the very much so like 1950s sci-fi designs for the robots that are in this issue. But it did make me go, inner John, this is so similar.
When I saw the not Ravage, and then I saw the big giant robot hand, crashing through, I was like, is this supposed to be in the Energon universe? I didn't think it was.
Right.
But then, we get a little bit more. And actually I got a real throwback to, was it issue 3 of the G.I. Joe comic with the big, like, Trojan horse robot in the original Marvel run that gets into the base? I got a little bit of a...
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and this one was one where, like, this makes sense. This is a silent story. Spirit obviously is a tracker. He's not saying anything to anybody, so it makes sense that this mission can be done without any actual dialogue.
And I thought the cyborgs in this were particularly gruesome because they were really focusing on the fact that it was the skeletal remains of the animals that were being used. Although the bear at the end clearly had a little bit of meat left, but it was a good self-contained story, and it felt like if the if the Sunbow cartoon had more one-off, like really focusing on one character episodes, I could see this as one. Like they didn't do that a lot. They did like the Lady J one with Destro's Castle, where it was really just her for most of the episode, but they didn't do that a lot. But this felt like it could have been that. It was a good narrative.
Those beginning pages with the foxes until you get into the whole like meat of the story, and then you realize, how this all ties together. I was like, why do we even have this? And then once I finished my first read of it, that was my initial thought. Like, you absolutely would have had that kind of, for lack of a better word, human element at the beginning of an episode of the Sunbow, like, know, Schrodinger's fox. And lo and behold, it bookends it. He comes back at the end. So,
and that brings us to this week's release, Roadblock's Silent Mission. And obviously, we can't really spoil anything in this one. There are a few things that I talked to Andrew about that I just had to ask him. First of all, I want to mention this to you guys because this blew my mind. We get a new, and this happens in the comics, but there's a new Arctic Cobra vehicle.
Okay.
And it is perfect. It looks right. It does not look like one of those. Wow, Kristian is losing his mind right now.
I am, because I wanted to text you, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to wait and see if he brings it up.
It looks like a design that might have happened. So often we get, whether it's Sunbow or the Marvel comic, they will need, just for story's sake, a vehicle that doesn't exist in the toy line. And often you can tell, like, yes, this is something that doesn't exist in the toy line, but this Arctic like prisoner transport vehicle looks like a toy to me.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
very
looks
much
like
so.
it's like this would be modeled after the Hiss tank. Like this is a variation on the Hiss tank platform.
It's a variation of the Filmation attack track.
Well, yeah.
I mean, down to the T. Because when I saw that first page, I liked the vehicle. Don't get me wrong. I was just like, oh, is this a hidden nod that the artist threw in here? Because I've seen that before.
I just thought it worked perfectly though, because it didn't look like one of those thrown in more the artist's vision than G.I. Joe designed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed big giant roadblock in this, and if you check out Andrew Cronky's other work, Bloodrick, you will understand his talent for drawing hulking behemoths. What else? I enjoyed the art. I really enjoyed the art in this one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the art in this one too.
I loved this one. I think this one has been my favorite so far. There is again, and I think this just goes back to characters being on model. There is one moment involving Roadblock's parka that I'm like,
we talk about that in the interview.
Good.
I asked him about that.
Okay. I am looking forward to it even more now because I was. But I also there's another Joe in this issue, listeners, that gets some pretty good fight scenes as well. So yeah,
Joe who I thought might have been somebody else when they first revealed them, until you see everyone kind of coming together later on. I don't know if I can spoil anything really, but in discussing this, but a character that Roadblock has had a history with in other media.
Okay, I got you. Oh, that would have been cool. That would have been cool. All right, so yeah, two silent missions. Well, 4 total are out now, with Duke's issue coming out next week. And then, of course, the reprint of the original silent issue. So this has been fun stuff. I've enjoyed reading it, enjoyed talking about it, and certainly enjoyed interviewing the people involved with it. So we've got...
has been a really nice bonus for after reading the issues.
We've got a little bit of follow-up from last week because we did get some pre-orders.
Well, real quickly, I want to jump into the chat real quick. Stuck in Carbonite says, I am hyped for the silent missions. I have the volume pre-ordered. Smart. Also, Ronnie Trickshot, good day from Tuesday morning in Australia. Eat some breakfast and listen to Audible Interlude.
Eat some Vegemite.
There you go.
So we got to talk about last week's pre-orders, which we had no idea if they were going to be affected by the tariffs or not. And fortunately, well, depending on where you order from, they may or may not be. Amazon and Pulse currently still have their, I guess, for lack of a better term, price guarantees in place, where once you pre-order something, it locks the price in. They haven't had to make any statements about changing, which we'll get more into that later, changing their pricing. So Amazon and Pulse, the 4 just regular release figures were $24.99 each, which I do feel like every once in a while I have to mention, I do still feel is overpriced for these figures.
Yeah.
I'm used to paying $24.99 for them, but I still think they should be $19.99. Or potentially even less than that. But
we had that surprise Target exclusive pop up that Noel gave us a heads up about. And when I went to the Target website, the Cobra Island roadblock is still on, available on Target's website for its
Oh, on the
original
website.
price of $18.99. And
Wow.
I had to remind myself, like, oh yeah, we did used to pay under $20
Yeah.
for these.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Target exclusive though, like I saw somebody post something with that like weeks ago, and I just thought it was somebody's like customer, a fake. I didn't think it was real. So I had kind of heard some rumblings about it, and then I saw that picture of what's being seen in stores, the Reaction Plus Python Patrol bat.
Yeah, which apparently briefly popped up online, available yesterday, and I missed it. So I'm just gonna have to keep looking in stores.
According to their app, there were 2 Targets that were within a 25-mile radius of me that supposedly had them on the shelves, and I was only willing to drive to the Target that was about 30 minutes away, and I took the risk because it said there were 2, and of course by the time I got there this afternoon they were long gone.
Ugh.
So
yeah, I as I mentioned, as I'm heading over to your house yesterday, I was going to stop by Target on the way over, and then I remembered Target closes on Easter Sunday. They're like one of the only businesses that does that.
Yeah. This is one that if I find it, I'll get it, but I'm not going to lose any sleep if I don't get it, because I've got the Reaction Python Patrol bat. It's great. I dig it, but I'd like to have this one, but I'm not going to go crazy going after it. You know what I mean? Like it's neat, but meh.
My only thing is that I have everyone they've released thus far in Reaction Plus, so I kind of feel like I have to continue buying them all.
Yeah, I do too.
well, Joe Fest is right around the corner.
I know at some point that's probably going to, like, they will release something that I'm like, I just don't need that.
Yeah.
So the sooner you break that seal, the better. The sooner the whatever the Reaction Plus Blue Ninjas are going to be hit, the better off I'll be. So anyway, the pricing was Pulse and Amazon, they were still $24.99. Big Bad, they were back to the $25.99, the pre-tariff pricing, rather than the $27.99 that they went to shortly before the tariffs became a reality. But now Big Bad has released their statement, which we'll talk about in a bit, that kind of changes all of that. And by the way, Entertainment Earth today released a similar statement about tariff pricing.
If you look at Brett White's comment from a few minutes ago, if you want to highlight that.
Oh, I missed that. Yep.
Yeah. So they didn't jump from $19.99 to $24.99. They jumped from $19.99 to $22.99 for about 6 months to a year, and then they went up again. So
yeah, the $22.99 didn't last super long, I don't think. Yep. And then the Claw $54.99, which
seemed fair. I thought.
Yeah, that's about what I was expecting.
And the Claw is now, several days ago was pre-order sold out on Pulse, and it was a Pulse exclusive. Everything else obviously is widely available.
Yeah, I was refreshing on the site at 1:00 that day, and refreshing at like 1:07, I think it was. Finally, the figures went up, so I went ahead and added them to my cart and went ahead and checked out. But the Claw wasn't there yet. And so then once I got done, they put the Claw up. It's like the Claw went up like maybe 2 minutes after all the rest of the figures.
What was I going to say? Oh, I think I talked about this with somebody. I'm trying to remember what it was. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say it again now. So I ended up ordering the Major Blood because what I realized is it is penless.
Oh.
Yeah. So that is, and look, I like the red. I want to check it out. So whatever.
That's a figure that if it winds up being the one that's like pretty common later on, I may wind up picking it up later, but it wasn't when I needed to pre-order.
All right, so that is
real quick.
our
Rec Chip
follow-up.
coming in to confirm. $22.99 lasted from the end of 2021 to the beginning of 2022.
Okay.
So not long.
Nope.
Well, that brings us to our official news. We do need a little news intro video, don't we? All right.
With a Hector Ramirez holding up his microphone. Yeah.
Oh, that would be great.
Oh.
That would be great. Okay, so we mentioned several times now the Toy Collector's Wish Book from Retro Toy Quest. Funded, more than funded, like it went way, way, way past minimum funding. And really, we just got a thank you email about making everything happen. The stretch goals were all hit. Another stretch goal of a slipcover was added, but it's going to be a fantastic book. It will be available. Hang on, I'm scanning over the email here. I can't remember if this is where he
March
said it.
2026? May?
Oh, well, no, I was going to say it will still be available for pre-order.
Oh.
Like outside of the Kickstarter. But that information is not in here. But bottom line is, if you're a Joe fan, you need this book. It is an incredible encyclopedia of a real American hero with all original toy photography by the author. If you haven't picked up any of the Toy Collector's Wish books, you absolutely should, either volume 1 or 2 right now. I think there are a few copies of volume 2 still available from the website from Blue Milk Publishing.
Yeah,
Isn't that what it is? Okay. I just can't recommend them highly enough.
Yeah, just look up Retro Toy Quest and you'll find the page.
You guys all know how to use Google. Come on. Okay, so that brings us to the saddest segment of the show. Tariff Watch 2025.
Oh, real quickly.
Yes.
Patrick Sargent wants to know, for the Toy Collector Wish books, how much are they roughly?
The hardcover editions are
60.
Are they 60? I believe they're 60.
Yeah, and I think the paperbacks were 40.
I think that's correct.
I can go look.
Yeah, Noel, you do a little research while we're answering other things here.
And Cobra Emperor 6 G.I. Joe O-Ring Collector Delta 17.
Wow, that's a heck of a handle.
Yeah, that name is a Mandalorian Jedi question.
60 and 35. Actually, the hardcover numbered is 55, hardcover 60, softcover 35.
Okay, cool.
Volume 2.
But they asked, does anyone know or have any guesses when Super 7 will give us their cool version of the Cobra Officer and Cobra Soldier, as well as their Arctic versions? I think with them just releasing the Arctic Cobra Commander, that we'll get more Arctic figures sooner rather than later. At least I really
want some like variations on the troopers and Vipers and things like that.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll spread them out, because I think anything that's even remotely a standard look, Super 7 will, that'll be an anchor. We'll get one sort of standard look figure per wave alongside some, Sunbow specific characters or looks or whatever the case may be. Okay, so Tariff Watch 2025. I already mentioned Big Bad and Entertainment Earth having to change their policies due to the insanity of the tariffs, the completely callous, unthinking insanity of the tariffs by the moronic administration that's running this country right now. But here we go. Big Bad's got a letter. I'm not going to read the whole thing, because if you're a customer of Big Bad, you've already got this. And if you're not, then you probably don't care. But the bottom line is, the pricing on Big Bad's website right now is going to reflect pricing that does not include these exorbitant, cruel tariffs. And what happens is, when you pre-order something, before it comes in, you'll get an update email saying your pricing will be adjusted when the item comes into stock. And at that time, we'll send you another email with the updated pricing. So you'll have two opportunities to cancel your order if you decide you can't pay the difference in it. There'll be one email where you can go check the price, like whatever it is at the time, and there'll be another one when it comes into stock that'll have the complete price, because they don't even know. Like right now, Big Bad has no idea what things that are going to come in a month from now are going to cost, or 6 months from now, or whatever, because the lunatics that are running everything don't know what they're doing either. So these poor small businesses, good, honest, hardworking Americans that have poured their blood, sweat, and tears into the American dream, that are being harmed by these policies, are going to lose their livelihood if they don't adjust on the fly to this insanity. So,
if they do adjust on the fly, they're looking at losing sales.
Right.
Because
absolutely.
Well,
either way,
pay to a certain amount.
Either way, they're going to lose money. And it's horrifying that as I said, the American dream that we were all raised to pursue is being attacked. But anyway, they're doing their best to make it as fair as it can possibly be for the American people, and at least somebody is. So that's your tariff watch, as I get angrier and angrier with each passing week and less able to control my opinions about what's going on. Thanks for tuning in to Tariff Watch.
And I think we did mention it the last time, but instead of being the usual voice of doom and gloom, I'll put the hopefully one little silver lining around this dark cloud, that there is a group, the toy companies have started to band together, and I wouldn't necessarily say they're lobbying, but they're trying to make their voice heard. Yes. Of how these tariffs are impacting their business way more than, someone think of the children. No, someone think of the toy companies and the collectors, because no one obviously thought about this. People were thinking about houses, cars, food, like whatever. I can survive for 72 hours, right? Without food, 48 without water.
But I mean, everything we buy comes from China.
Right.
Everything. Yeah. There's just no way around that. Or, other countries that are going to be affected.
So moving on to other news that is, potentially a little less disturbing. So, Noel, I think you probably have a little more information about this than I do, but this is very exciting because you guys know what's not affected by tariffs? Vintage toys. They're already here. They were made 40 years ago. So tariffs don't affect them at all. Now, granted, it's going to affect your ability to buy them. But
that's timely, because Brett White chimed in again. I'm having a hard time surviving without splurging on eBay finds. And dude, I am right there with you right now, as I'm like, I'm going to have to cut some lines from my budget. And that's just more money for eBay.
Well, and that in all seriousness, that the vintage toys are about to be a massive market once again, which unfortunately will drive the prices up.
Right. So I'm thinking it's gonna go back to like what happened in 2020 during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right, because they have finally started to come down.
Yeah.
I felt like to some reasonable
definitely
pricing, and you could really get some deals. And now I'm like, ooh, stuff's going to skyrocket. So do I pull the trigger now or still wait?
Okay, so anyway, this is from Robert Carson Metaxas, the man who brought us 3D Joes and the art, or the recent massive tome The Art of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero Field Guide. So, Noel, you kind of hipped us to this first.
Yeah, well, I mean, very briefly was talking to Carson and Wayne, who's behind the Retro Toy Quest, who were kind of working together on this project. So, like, this is going to be like there was some voting, there were some options to vote. I can't remember how much of this was actually revealed to the public at the time that Toylanta was going on a few weeks ago, but there were options to vote on some of the features of this, and those are still available now on the site. But yeah, I mean, this looks like another great project from some fantastic creators here in the G.I. Joe community, and I am really looking forward to this.
So what this is a literal pocket-sized guide. Each volume will be roughly 500 pages and will measure in at 4 inches by 5 inches. So it'll be small enough to carry around with you. So if you're like me and you're at Toylanta and you see a charbroil, you'll be able to pop this thing open and go, wait a minute, he should have an antenna on that backpack and not buy the one with the broken antenna. It's a complete visual guide to the, and this is nuts because I don't know if I would have guessed this number. 483 figures released from 1982 to 1994. Was that is that something that's kind of in the top of you guys' heads, or is that number surprising to you a little bit? I don't know if I would have realized it was that many.
Yeah, it was surprising, but I wasn't, after hearing it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Looking back at everything that we've covered just over, and we've barely scratched the surface, but everything we've covered over the, almost, 5 years. 5 years we've been doing this show now. I realized, yeah, it is that much. So there's going to be 3 volumes. The first volume is going to be all 483 G.I. Joe Real American Hero figures from 1982 to 1994, life-size photographs with a complete list of accessories. Volume 2 is going to be the file card repository. So basically what they have on 3D Joes, but you can carry it around with you. So this is something that I have actually been wanting for a while, just rather than having a recipe box with 483 file cards in it. We'll have my gosh, how big would that recipe box be? This is going to be all the file cards in a nice, right, exactly.
When is Colonel Mongoose's birthday? Because I think we should send him one.
Absolutely, December.
Just as a pre-warning.
And then finally, the third volume will present mint on card pictures of all of those Joes. So this is a really, really cool undertaking, and it's something that's not just going to be, oh, cool, that we're going to have this, all this great photography of these toys. This is a literal useful resource for a collector. So I'm really excited about this project. And I believe that from the phrasing here on the website, I think it's going to be 3 separate Kickstarters, but I'm not positive. I can't quite tell. But the polling has ended, and option 4, they were letting people vote on how the books were going to work, and what I just read is the polling, and I agree with it. It seems like the best option. If you want to check out 3djoes.com field guides, you can go look at it and just see what the layout's going to be. This is going to be a fantastic resource, and again, one of the most vital members of the G.I. Joe community, Robert Carson Metaxas, his tireless efforts to just create the best Joe resources available
and preserve so much of what was out there. And we think about this 40 years ago when these things were being created. No one thought that 40 years later that this was going to be still like so beloved by people.
Right.
Toys didn't have that attachment. There was a very small minority of people who still collected maybe their toys of their childhood at this point in time, but now it's a huge thing, and there was so much effort and passion that went into creating some of this stuff back in the day. So it's great that some people are recognizing it and able to preserve it the way they are.
And to bounce back to our conversation about secondhand figures and eBay and all that, I was actually having this conversation with Repship earlier last week, because there were some figures that I keep seeing pop up on eBay and people think they're complete. And we're talking in the Valor versus Venom Spy Troops era.
Oh
And
yeah,
I asked him, I'm like, I legit don't know what these should come with to make them complete, because I see different accessories in like every single photo. So, to be able to have this, to just very quickly say, oh yeah, Shipwreck came with more than just poly. Yep.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, as somebody who has boxes of Valor versus Venom and G.I. Joe versus Cobra in that era, at the time, I wasn't bagging accessories like I do now. So I have a drawer of those accessories, and it would take me a long time to get everything divided out. Actually, it took me, because it was the same thing with my 97 to 2003 or 4, or like however long they were doing O-rings there, because those, I actually pulled all of my O-rings out from that era, cleaned them up and everything. And I did sit down with Yo Joe and figure out which accessories went with who. And that took weeks to get
I
that
believe
done.
it.
Even though most of them were, repaints, or like they still came with different weapons from the originals and stuff. It was weird.
Yeah, when I started putting my Joes up on the shelf, after years and years of being up in storage, I had to do the same thing. I'm going through 3D, not 3D Joes, but joegojo.com, just trying to match like all the accessories and trying to figure out, do I still have this accessory?
Right. Yeah, that's the other part of it. So anyway, this now, granted, we're talking about stuff that's not 82 to 94 now, or at least I am. So this isn't going to help with that, but this is still going to be an invaluable resource, and I'm 100% in on this Kickstarter whenever it goes live. And now, finally, after weeks, maybe months of teasing, it is here. The Desert Hound. And I am compelled to put my money where my mouth is, because this is the one that I said I would buy if they put it out. Now, granted, it doesn't have that sweet brown Megaforce camo on it like I wanted, which I understand I could do easily enough myself. But
have you messaged them yet to see are they doing a camo? Because I would not be surprised.
Well, but it may be something where they are just leaving it to the people to deco it how they want.
To do themselves.
But it looks just as awesome as I thought it would. Look at the tires. Just everything about this. This, in my head, is what this thing, like the other ones are great. We've talked about it. Like, it's a great looking vehicle. But in my head, this is the design that I have always felt it should be.
This I love. This makes sense way more than an Arctic vehicle, and even more than its Striker look. Like,
yeah, I mean, this feels right.
Yeah.
Which is why I think they saved it. We often talk about toy companies and how, well, even Classified, how they released the Tiger Force versions of certain characters first, because they know, well, I'll go ahead and buy that one since it's out now. But what you really want is the regular Outback. So I think Gridiron kind of did a similar thing here, where they put out the regular Hound, the Shadow Hound, and they were both great. They both looked awesome, but I think they knew this was the one. This was the design for this vehicle. Everything about it looks absolutely fantastic. And it's just hard. Wait, we can't get to that yet. I want it, but man, that $200 is a big ask, especially right now.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I would rather have this than the official Striker that's coming
I
out.
agree. I absolutely agree.
But it's going to cost more than twice as much, I have a feeling.
Right. But man, it looks good. And of course, as they often do, they have already, let me get to the website here so I can follow along. They have already released the first expansion pack, I guess, for it. Oh, wow. Is it sold out already, or did I go to the wrong page on the website? I don't know. But, oh, wow, it might be sold out. Well, whatever the case, you've got the Desert Hound Advanced Heavy Recon loadout that, doesn't change the look as dramatically as some of the expansions for the other versions, but I have a feeling we're going to see a bigger expansion.
I love that netting.
Yeah, the netting is really nice.
I want it.
The netting is great. The extra artillery is great. And you can see here what this expansion includes. I also really like those panels that add on to the side there. And I would love to see, Kristian, you were talking about if the Arctic version were enclosed, I would love to see panels like that maybe would enclose that thing a little bit. Whoop, it's not that time yet. So anyway, this thing just looks awesome, and I'd love to have it, but I don't know. I'm figuring out how practical it is. Plus, we got to consider we've probably got a HasLab a couple months away.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Which
I don't know.
I mean, it's going to be a big HasLab, I have a feeling, too. I think we're probably looking at maybe another $300 plus dollar one.
For sure, 300 to 350, if not more.
I mean, if we're looking at a tank, that's going to be 350 because it's going to have to be bigger than this.
Oh, I think
Jeff Butler chimed in. Kristian, buy a 60s beach party movie and you can get a Frankie and a net. I love the humor. Don't look at my DVD shelf because I do own all those.
Hey, Back to the Beach is a masterpiece.
Back to the Beach, Let's Freaking Go ring coming soon.
That's how you get your Pee Wee Herman.
Complete with Pee Wee Herman and Angelo Moore.
That's right.
Your full fishbone set. Okay, so yeah, that thing just looks awesome. Check out gridironprops.com for more details. I would love to have it, but it's just budgeting right now is really scary. Speaking of scary, it's time to move on. It's almost time to move on. We're getting there. It's time to move on to Sound Off. This is the segment where the Audible Army participates even more directly in the show. If you are following Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram, then you see our Sound Off posts. Every day we do a live stream, and it gives you the opportunity to give some input as to what we're going to talk about on the show. So let's get down to it. We're all caught up. We had a couple of episodes we got behind on, but we're all caught up now and had a pretty light week this week. So we got plenty of time for Joe and Tell, which is good because we're pretty backed up there too. I think Noel and I both have like 3 months worth of Joe and Tells just banked. We will start with our pal Wreck Ship 85. You have been kidnapped by robotic Easter bunnies sent by the Games Master and awaken inside an array of large egg-shaped pods. Which Joe or Cobra are you hoping is in the egg pod next to you as you both attempt to escape this reverse Easter egg hunt of doom? All right. Let's start with Kristian.
Okay. So this is a character I actually just saw last week. Might be one of my new obsessions, but for this specific mission, he no question, Grand Slam, but specifically Sigma 6 version of Grand Slam.
Oh, wow.
He is a big boy, and he has like this giant railgun weapon for breaking eggshells. Like, he looks like he could take down the Predator with just a flex of his bicep.
See, when you say Grand Slam, I was thinking jetpack and just fly right out of there. But you went in a different direction. I appreciate that. So my pick is, I got to tell you, this is the first thing that popped in my head. This one didn't. I just couldn't sink my teeth into it, so I just went with Duke. Because look, if you've got to cook a meal, you want Roadblock because he's the master chef. If you've got to mow a lawn, you want Pathfinder because he's the master gardener. If you're going to get kidnapped, you want to be with Duke because he is the best at getting kidnapped and rescued every single time. So I want Duke with me because I know he knows how to handle being kidnapped, and they're always going to come get him.
And if you do have to fight a neon laser bunny to escape, like, yeah, Duke's your guy.
Mine, I don't know why, but as soon as I envisioned this, it popped into my head, and I can't see it any other way. I want Metalhead, just like lobbing rockets everywhere just to get us out of this situation.
I like that you guys both went with just like the most artillery possible.
Well, my initial thought was Metalhead, but dear listeners, I did tell the guys, I feel like I rotate through the same characters because they're pretty useful. So I wanted to change it up a little. But speaking of changing it up, our listeners say Cobra 6 G.I. Joe O-Ring Collector Delta 17, Python Patrol Bats, Jeff Butler, always choose Airtight, Smog 17, I'd want to have a Frag Viper. I'm also there with you on that one.
But the Frag Viper, when the Frag Viper wakes up, all the grenades are painted like Easter eggs.
Yes. Reverend Scott Stripling Art. Howdy, howdy. Law and Order. You need a dog for the rabbit hunt.
Oh, solid.
Oh, and we have Brett White coming in with Big Lob, master of the egg toss.
All right, moving on. Tom Henry. What's the podcast origin story? It seems that Crapshoot and Troublemaker were formerly roommates, but how did Legion Cub, a member of Cobra, join the team? Are interns full-fledged members of Cobra? Speaking of the Cobra intern, will he ever get a promotion? Getting some fangs and fly down memory lane. Hashtag Fang 2025. So I like this weird. Okay, so tonight we're taking the approach of how we actually ended up doing this or how we know each other. But I would be interested for us to come up with a fake origin story.
Well,
like
us
being roommates.
MST3K. Well, yeah.
Because
so Noel and I have known each other.
As a Cobra intern, I was going door to door to sell Cobra cookies because that is partially how you get a promotion. And when two Joes opened the door, I tried to preach the good word of Cobra Commander and set an example. And now the 80s theme music plays.
I'm going to give you an assignment, Kristian. I would like for you to create the pamphlet that you had with you when you knocked on our door.
There you go.
The Cobra ideology pamphlet. I would like to see what that looks like. So Noel and I have known each other since like 96, probably.
Almost 30 years.
Yeah,
like that.
almost 30 years. We just had a lot of mutual friends, and Noel and I never cohabitated, but I was in an apartment with people that Noel went to high school with. And I think probably the idea that we were roommates, because we've talked a lot about watching pay-per-views together and stuff back in the day. So
I spent a lot of time at your place of residence.
Right. We really should have,
before you lived there and during the time that you lived there.
Yeah, we should have been charging you rent, but we didn't.
And I think I probably met you first when you were working at the Masquerade.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, that's where I met that whole crew.
Mm-hmm.
was Masquerade, and then Pete was Hot Topic. Well, no, Pete was probably Masquerade before Hot Topic, because he's probably how I got the job at Hot Topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that was it. And over the years,
well, and you were, I knew that you liked G.I. Joe. I wasn't actively collecting toys for all that time. Like, I think you were definitely more into it for many of those years. I mean, I was, I did have a toy collection, but G.I. Joe was something that was kind of it was like, this is my childhood stuff, but I wasn't collecting any of the stuff that was that came out in the like late 90s, early 2000s. And there wasn't a lot of stuff on the shelf really for a couple of years there.
No, according to Jeff Butler, 1996, the year of no new G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Brett White's got a good one there too.
Hot Topic, the only place to buy G.I. Joe merch in the late 90s.
That is a fact.
But who was buying G.I. Joe merch when there was all that Invader Zim merch?
And all those NWO t-shirts.
96, I was working at Hot Topic in 96 and 97, and we got in several G.I. Joe shirts, patches. It was really odd to get that licensed stuff in at that time, because the brand was kind of deadish.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, absolutely. That was, matter of fact, I still have. I've worn it on the show before. We've talked about it. I've still got one of the G.I. Joe shirts I bought. That's the 1987 catalog art. It's my favorite one, and for some reason, that has never been reprinted as a shirt with as much different stuff as they've done, and especially all the print-on-demand stuff now. That art has not been put on a shirt since that I'm aware of. So yeah, that's that. Oh, and well, okay. To get to the podcast portion of it, Noel had a website, dorkdroppings.com, for a very long time, and was doing podcasts about, what did we do? We did a WrestleMania podcast.
Yeah, we did one right before WrestleMania, the one that with Bret Hart and Vince McMahon. So that was like 2011. I think
it had to be, because I started because that was the first podcast I was ever on. And then 2012 is when I met the ESO guys and started working with them, and then later started Needless Things. So, but yeah, you started me off on this podcast journey. So I don't use strong language on the show, so I'll just say, thank you very much. All right. What else?
And give him back his black T-shirt.
All right. Last one, believe it or not. Silent Interlude, as a slight variation to what should the next sub-team be, which characters should get an environment-specific update. I've kind of leaned into getting multiples of the same character anyway, and there are a lot that I would like to see, but to start out, I'd take Doc, Scarlet, Mindbender, and Baroness in Arctic gear, and Flint and Lady J in scuba gear. They've all had those looks represented in the cartoon or comics at some point, and I'd prefer O-rings, but they'd work in Classified too. Special Mission Brazil does not count as environmentally specific for the purposes of this question. First of all, Silent Interlude, you can take that last little note and stick it where the sun don't shine. Special Missions Brazil, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Brazil is a very unique environment that can only be survived by wearing red and tan gear or silver wetsuits. That is environmentally specific. No, you are correct. Although I would be, well, I'll save this thought for another day. So I'll go ahead with this one because this actually did. I liked this, and I'm going to tie it back to the vehicle that we were just talking about and saying that I'd like to see some desert looks for Outback. I think a desert Outback would be very cool and appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Hit and run. Think about that as a variation. Like, it'd just be cool to see that all over desert camo. I mean, he'd certainly give off some dusty vibes, but I think it'd be an interesting look. Tunnel Rat. Think about what that could look like, because Night Force Tunnel Rat and regular Tunnel Rat are really similar.
Yeah.
But I think a desert Tunnel Rat would be a very different look for the character and could be pretty interesting. And then also, because there are mountains in the desert, a desert Alpine.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to do Alpine, you got to do Bazooka. So Desert Bazooka, just because. So that is I want to do 5 because that's I will relate this to Special Mission Brazil somehow, and that there are 5. So yeah, I would like to see Outback, Hit and Run, Tunnel Rat, Alpine, and Bazooka in desert gear. And I'll take that in whatever format they want to release it, classified, O-ring, whatever. I mean, at this point, I would prefer O-rings for everything, but whatever. What about you guys? You come up with anything for this?
Unfortunately, this came in after I was checking the sound offs today, so I didn't get a lot of chance to really think about it. My first thought before you said something was desert, because I've always thought that when we think of like military, like U.S. military for the last like 30 something years, that's really been like the dominating like look, because we've seen combat in the Middle East, and so you see that like more than you see like the standard green.
The military switched to the desert theme shortly after they got out of Vietnam because they knew where they were going next.
Right. So I mean, like I think there's a lot of opportunity to do more troopers in that. And I said I didn't get that desert Snake Eyes that came out in Classified, but I like the idea they were doing stuff like that, and I would like to have seen more like that.
I wonder if he's cheap. I never got him either.
I would like to see more kind of along the lines of the long range recon patrol type outfits we saw in Marvel Comics with Snake Eyes and Stalker and Storm Shadow and the others, where you have that. And I'm thinking like Tropic Thunder too, like those sorts of outfits that are they're jungle, but you also have to be, in kind of a survival mode. Not sure which characters you could use. I would actually like to see if you've ever seen like the desert, or sorry, that desert, and back to my mind on that, but like the jungle wetsuit they did. I'd love to see that one again. You could even repurpose some that did have some kind of Vietnam era style, like a Footloose, something like that. Your infantry trooper in more of a jungle gear. I mean, obviously you've got your Recondo already. You don't need to put him in jungle gear. I'd have to think about a couple of others.
But you could theme him green and change up some stuff. Like it could be interesting.
So my approach.
Oh, real quick. Sorry, Kristian. Real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Desert Snake Eyes is currently $33.70 plus $8.91 shipping on Amazon. And if I'm remembering, I don't think he ever dipped below like $17.
They must not have put him out in large numbers.
I always expected he would just bottom out, and he never did. And that's sometimes when you wait, that's what happens.
My approach to this, as much as I want Arctic versions of more characters, more so than that, I want green shirt versions of the characters that didn't get anything outside of what their environment is. Meaning, I want fatigue version snow job, frostbite, torpedo, wetsuit. I want these guys to be able to be on the battlefield or hanging out in the base without, you know, being head to toe in scuba gear. You know, deep six.
I like that a lot. I do. I actually, I'll take that over anything else we've said. If we could get non-environment specific versions of environment specific characters, I think that is the way to go with all of that. And we've talked about that before, but as even like a subline, maybe I think that would be really cool.
Getting that gung ho in his dress blues back in the day was such a cool thing to get, and we just didn't get enough of those types of, you know, where someone's in like an alternate, like non-combat outfit.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few from the chat I want to highlight real quick.
Go for it.
Jeff Butler, Marvel Special Missions 24 cheerleading squad, Lady J, Scarlet, Jinx, and CoverGirl. If they come with pom-poms, yes. Wreckship 85, I want to see more Joe characters in Miami Vice outfits. 100% yes.
Yeah.
And there was actually multiple people that chimed in with Vietnam, including Cobra Emperor, 6 G.I. Joe O-Ring Collector, Delta 17, Reverend Scott Stripling, Vietnam Joes with a Huey. Again, yes. So yeah, some very good ideas there.
Whoa! Kristian, put it up there.
Whoa! Super chat.
Brian Fabian in the super chat. Thank you so much. With, I'd say, less popular characters such as Recoil. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a good way to maybe get them a little more, or just, you know, from later in the line, get them a little more recognition. Thank you so much. And as always, everything that comes in via the super chat goes towards hosting, creating merchandise. It all goes back into the production of Audible Interlude. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And that brings us to the final segment of the show, and one that unfortunately has been a disposable segment quite often recently, but now we've got plenty of time for it. And that is Joe and Tell, where we have items, an item or items that we can put on the camera and talk about. I'm going to kick this one off just because it's a follow-up. Oh, man, I hope I do this right. StreamYard, I've mentioned this before, StreamYard shifted around the way that the panels work. There we go. So I'm going to kick it off. I mentioned the poor, unfortunate eBay seller that maybe I wasn't the nicest to. If you listen to... Was that on last week's episode?
Last week.
Yeah. It was Knowing is Half the Babble last week. If you want to hear the background story on it, go check that out. But basically, it was an eBay seller who didn't combine shipping. So I retaliated by ordering many things one day at a time. And that stuff is here. So I've got some stuff I've never had before. I've got some ninjas, and I cannot remember everybody's name because I don't know these characters. Now, is this Shebang? Shebang! So. Or is that a different one? I don't know. I just wanted
I'll
some
pull
ninjas.
them up while you're showing.
And then I got, because I can't remember which one is which, Slice and Dice. And what I learned about these ninja figures is that, and I'm sure this is common knowledge for people who like are on top of these, they don't have the screws in the back, so you cannot replace their O-rings. So these guys are a little loosey-goosey. They still stand up okay, but the figures are beautiful. No paint loss, no nothing. Like, they look gorgeous. So I'm really happy with the condition the figures are in. And this was a great eBay seller. Oh, no, wait. This is This is shebang, isn't it?
That's shebang.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Complete all their little soft goods, extra pieces look really great. Came with the weapons. And then
so
finally,
the first one you held up was Dojo.
yes. And then I've got this one was mainly just because I got the classified figure, and I was like, well, I got to get a O-ring nunchuck as well. And again, his little soft goods piece is pristine. He looks great, all his camo in place. I've got one more ninja, and this is the one that sparked this whole insane buying spree because he's incredible. I can't remember his name. I think it begins with a B. But he's got Bonsai. He's got pink spatter paint on his black pants that looks amazing. Soft goods, rooted hair, ponytail, and again in really nice shape. Crazy pink ski mask type thing. But what's interesting about this figure is the hole in his foot is massive. He does not stay on a stand. I haven't run into this is the first figure I've run into that's had the problem where it just does not work with a small Joe's stand. But fortunately, he's pretty tight, doesn't need any work at all. And then the last one is not a ninja, but the seller had it for the same, like, really good price. These were all, or each of these was under $18 shipped. Which I know we were talking about some eBay prices earlier in the show, but that's under 20 is my sweet spot. I also got the Beachhead version, whatever. I guess this is version 2, right?
Yeah,
Is it?
so.
Okay. Just because he looked great, and he is pristine, super tight, no paint loss whatsoever. Looks great. Had all 73 of his accessories. Has this weird little, you can see his mouth through his mask. It's a neat looking figure. It's in my head. This is not going to be Beachhead, but it's a cool looking figure. So yeah, all the stuff came in from eBay, and it is funny that, we've just been talking about eBay is going to be a big thing again, because I went years without buying much of anything on eBay.
If I remember correctly, because again, this was the period when my younger brother was very much into Joe's, and Ninja Force was very much a thing he was into. I think like they don't have the O-rings because every single one of them has an action feature.
Well, they've got the O-rings, but you can't get to
them.
I
mean, right, you can't unscrew it because...
But yeah, they have action features, like they've got an arm that goes up, or they've got a twist punch like the He-Man figures.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
because I remember that was one of the things I disliked about them.
There's a comment.
The fact that they were ninjas, but...
There's a comment up a few minutes ago from Cobra Emperor 6 about fixing those. If you want to scroll up just a bit.
Here we go. Cobra Emperor 6 G.I. Joe O-Ring Collector Delta 17. Yep. I hate that no screws, but G.I. Joe Berg is the only one that knows how to fix them. He has a video on it.
The only one. So if you watch the video, you will immediately forget.
You'll be number 2.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out, because they are they do need new O-rings if that can be done. All right, who's up next?
I can go.
All right.
So I'm going to share one of my childhood Joe accessories, and I want to know if anybody can identify this right here.
Is that a toothpaste dispenser?
This is, in fact, a toothpaste dispenser.
Yeah.
From the Sears exclusive G.I. Joe Command Post, which I had as a child, and for some reason, this is all I have left. I have been, since we started this podcast, trying to complete this. This is the only other part I've seen go up on sale on eBay in all that time.
Wow.
But I mean, this is my original one. This is my childhood one. I want to say at one point in time I had the base for the brush, but I can't find it now. I know I don't have the toothbrush or any of the extra heads for the toothbrush.
So wait, what else goes with that?
So this came with, it was two components. This was half of it. You put the toothpaste tube in here. It doesn't work very well because most of the toothpaste tubes were too large. And then it dispensed it out of here, this little gear.
Right, it would squeeze the tube down.
Yes. And then the other half of it was just a base that also had the little G.I. Joe sticker, and it held an electric toothbrush, and it had two other spare toothbrush. If you look up G.I. Joe Command Post toothbrush, you will find plenty of pictures of it. But this is way rarer than I remember it being. Like, you can find on eBay, people are selling cases to protect your original box if you still have one. But so this has been like a dream to complete this and use the Joe and Tell for so long. But I was just playing around, and this actually goes back several weeks because I've been sitting here with this box for a long time. Now I don't want to disappoint anybody. This is not going to be the rest of the Command Post toothbrush. But when looking for this, I decided, sometimes you just got to have things that you find on the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut away from me. I don't want to cut towards me because, I don't want to.
Please be careful. I've injured myself in enough videos on needless things, just reviewing toys. So please let's not do it live here.
Yeah, let's try to keep ourselves well. But I found other variations of this, but this seems to have been kind of the whole complete package. So I have right here the G.I. Joe locker bag.
What?
This is it's a clear plastic container with a drawstring, and within this, I believe this is a toothbrush. So I got a little G.I. Joe toothbrush here.
This is the stuff I love. I love this stuff.
Oh yeah, I love this stuff as well. A hairbrush, so I can comb through my hair, which I'm losing, in this stage. Actually, that was the comb. I actually have the full hairbrush as well.
Oh, nice.
These do not. Oh yes, this does have a G.I. Joe sticker on the back of it. Okay, yeah. So yeah, this also has the G.I. Joe sticker. We also have.
Does it have the soap dish?
So it does have mini soap that comes in this little container right here.
See, I've got that container, but I don't have the soap.
Of course, Leatherneck is going to be in the shower with you.
Of course he is. And then finally, I have. Okay, I didn't even realize this part was in there. It comes with a nice little cup.
Oh, a little water cup
with the armadillo emblazoned upon it.
See, that's what I love so much about this stuff is you don't know which vehicle they're going to choose to put on your drinking cup.
Now, this towel is also in here. I don't know if this towel was part of the original packaging or if this just got thrown in.
Right.
But no, I love these little things. When this was released in '86. It's a nice little '86 Hasbro on stamp on the toothbrush holder.
Nice.
But yeah, as this kept coming up in my search results every time I'm looking for Command Post toothbrush. And so I was like, you know what? I found one that looked like it was complete and it was a reasonable price. So I was like, I gotta have this.
That's great. I love it.
Unboxing live on Audible Interlude.
All right, Kristian.
Okay, so
wrap us up.
My Joe and Tell ties into my babble for last week because of work. I haven't had time to put my first video together. But after being totally let down by that seller, stiffing me for the Valor versus Venom, my Please Fix and Repair Sky Striker came in complete. If I can get it out of here.
That's nice.
One parachute, and the parachute is actually in the artwork and stuff is in really good shape. It's not all scratched up. I will say that the pictures on eBay actually made this look more discolored. I think they might have used a flash because when it got here, other than just some general surface cleaning, there's not like any repainting. Although I have seen some customs now, people turning this into Thundercracker, and it looks good. One thing that is different, though, I should have, if you heard my babble last week, you did hear me say that the wheels, the one that I fixed up, having the wheels was important because I didn't want to have to take the whole thing apart to deal with that mechanism. And when I looked at the picture and I saw the wheels, apparently I don't know multiples, but that's okay. Because I found someone I am emailing who apparently 3D printed a new mechanism so that it's correct where the wings are the wings are open and the wheels are up like the HasLab version.
Okay.
So that way when the wings are when the wheels are down, the wings are like this for storage. And that, even as a kid, that was just something about the Sky Striker that never made sense to me. So they don't have like an Etsy or anything like that. I found them on His Tank. And so their website basically says email me. So we'll see what happens. They also sell some other 3D printed parts. Like instead of these engines, it's more of the contemporary jet exhaust ports. So I'm kind of figuring out in the repair how modern do I want to go. But yeah.
Sure. Cool. Excellent.
Very cool.
Very solid Joe and Tells. Hopefully we will be able to continue doing that. If we keep having slow news cycles, I'm sure we'll get more Joe and Tells going. And as I said, we've got stuff banked for a long time. Well, that does it for this week's show. Our music is by Andy Samford of electricminnowmusic.com. Follow us on Instagram at Audible Interlude Podcast or on Blue Sky at Audible Interlude Podcast. Kristian, where can we find that toy photography you do so well?
You can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram under the name Legion Cub.
And Noel, why don't you tell us a little bit about The Finest?
The Finest is an international G.I. Joe costuming club that raises money for a wonderful organization called Canines for Warriors. So you can check out thefinestcc.com or the Finest Recruitment Center on Facebook if you ever thought about dressing up like your favorite Joe character and helping us with this charitable cause.
Well, as I mentioned, our next live stream is on May the 5th. Put it on your calendar and join us then. Until next time, yo, Joe.
Cool.